An ordinary shift for a police officer.
This case came in as just another burglary.
This is an offence we have seen quite a lot of.
Can quickly take an extraordinary turn.
It's gone from 0 to 100 in no time at all.
A routine case
Just thought we were picking up someone who's maybe just a bit drunk and disorderly.
can suddenly spiral into a serious incident.
I need to arrest you on suspicion of murder.
The more I dig, the more I find. How big was this case going to get?
He has started a fire, he's done it deliberately and used some kind of fuel to get that fire going.
Sometimes the most minor crimes
It's really important that we get hold of him as quickly as possible and get him off the street.
can crack major cases.
We did have an international manhunt on our hands. Gotcha.
Today on Big Little Crimes. Police searching a family home in a sleepy northeast village discover it's hiding explosive secrets.
We had 2 firearms experts. Their minds were blown. They'd never seen a loaded weapon so easily accessible.
With potentially lethal consequences.
That could have quite easily caused the death of a young child in that house.
But first, reports of a speeding motorist turn to tragedy. And time is of the essence to prove the driver has broken more laws than just speeding.
He actually threatened to kill them if they didn't get out of his way.
Dawn breaks on a summer's day, and the last few hours of a quiet night shift for Greater Manchester Police Traffic Officer Sergeant Phil Robinson. He's no stranger to unsociable working hours.
My family business was a bakery and that's where my career started. When I got to the age of 28, I decided before I was too old that I wanted to join the police. Because of my interest in vehicles and cars, it was something that I wanted to go into.
Now retired, Phil was a traffic officer for 26 years, ending up as sergeant of a team covering the entire Greater Manchester motorway network.
I've always loved cars since being a teenager, so I got to drive some really interesting fast cars, and within the parameters of what we were trained to do, we could drive those cars to the limit.
One August morning, as he's about to finish his 10-hour shift, Phil gets a call on his radio.
We heard the reports of a vehicle at high speed in the West Yorkshire area, so most of the patrols headed towards our boundary. Anything coming down the M62 and not coming off at a junction would ultimately end up in the Greater Manchester area.
But a speeding car is nothing new for Phil.
At that time the motorways are quiet, there's not much traffic on it, so quite often drivers will try the vehicles out, seeing how fast they can get to go on a quiet motorway. The bottom line is motorways are dangerous in different ways than normal roads are. Significantly fewer accidents occur on the motorways given the miles and the number of cars that use them. But when they do happen on motorways, the accidents and the injuries can be significantly higher due to the higher speeds of the vehicles.
With that in mind, Phil needs more information about the speeding car.
We didn't have any true indication of speed, it was just a vehicle at high speed, so nothing that significant at that stage.
Phil has other patrol cars in the area, but makes the decision to handle this call himself.
We'll make our way to the general area. That was certainly my intention. I didn't direct other patrols at that stage because it wasn't that significant. It may or may not arrive in Greater Manchester.
More information comes in. The speeding car is a black Audi Q7 capable of going up to 150 miles per hour. But the next radio message changes everything. There's been a major accident on the M62.
The initial reports came in that it was looking like a serious collision with 2 vehicles.
For now, the speeding motorist is no longer a priority. Phil races to the incident. A crash involving 2 cars.
So this is the scene of the accident. The Fiat Punto had come along in lane 1 and the Audi had come lane 3, hit the Fiat Punto, and then Fiat Punto ended up just beyond the bridge down there where the bridge stanchion is, and the Audi Q7 went through the barriers and landed on the grass verge, up the grass verge, pointing back towards the motorway.
As the highest ranked officer at the scene, Phil takes charge.
When you arrive at the scene of an accident, you've got to do a quick assessment and decide who needs the attention, who needs to be dealt with as a matter of urgency. One of the officers that had already got there was dealing with the Audi, and I could see that he'd actually detained the driver. My initial concern was with the Fiat Punto because I could see it had extensive damage.
What Phil discovered in that car has never left him.
We could see that there were 3 occupants in that vehicle. There was Catherine Proctor, she was the front seat passenger, Gary Proctor, who was the driver, and their 16-year-old son, James, who was the rear seat passenger.
The family from Wakefield were on their way to Manchester Airport ahead of a holiday in Florida.
The initial indications were that Gary had sadly passed away. James in the back seat was seriously injured, and the paramedics were attending to him. To be a police officer, you need to be able to keep a calm and level head. You've got to be able to go and deal with the situation, not get emotionally involved. When you're dealing with fatal accidents, this is a very challenging aspect of the job. You're dealing with the death of people. Quite a lot of the people that are involved in fatal accidents have a total disregard of the law. And as a result of that, they've taken the life of somebody else. It is murder by a motor vehicle.
Phil's priority is to work out how the collision happened.
There's 101 things going through your mind. You're trying to gain as much evidence as many potential witnesses, because at that time all we've got are 2 vehicles at the scene. So we've got a black Audi that's now crashed. And from the impact damage to the vehicles, the potential offender is going to be the driver of the Audi Q7. So we quickly found out that Imran Hussain was the sole occupant of that vehicle. The obvious things we start looking at are, has he been drinking?
The driver of the Audi is 32-year-old Imran Hussain from Leeds. A breathalyzer test immediately shows that he's well over the legal limit. An already serious situation just got worse.
So we've now got 2 offences, death by dangerous driving and providing positive breath sample. So we need to get him to a police station as quickly as we can, because all the time this is going on, his breath readings are going to be dropping. So we have to get a designated police station where he can be taken to and getting a proper breath reading that we can use in court.
Next, Phil turns his attention to the car.
Once the driver's out of the car, we then start looking at the Audi, and we have to treat that as a crime scene.
Straight away, he finds a potential piece of evidence.
Carrying out a quick search, I noticed that there was a mobile phone, and that was on the floor. Initially, it looked damaged because it was in the footwell in pieces. It was one of the earlier Nokia phones that probably most people won't relate to these days, and I could see that the front and rear covers were off the phone. But I could see that the display on it was actually lit up, so we knew the phone was working. So there's half a chance that that damage to the phone had been caused by the airbag going off, so there's a good possibility that the driver actually had the phone in his hand at the time.
If it's true, it's yet another serious offence. Next, Phil gets evidence from witnesses who saw the collision and stopped to help, and their story rings alarm bells.
What they did tell me was that as they approached the vehicle, the driver of that vehicle made specific threats. They were actually violent and aggressive threats. He actually threatened to kill them if they didn't get out of his way. In this particular case, the picture that we've got now of our offender is this person has no remorse.
Then Phil gets an update from the hospital about the 16-year-old son, James.
as a result of his injuries. Sadly, James died. At this point, we've now got 2 fatalities. Catherine Proctor had serious injuries, but she had survived the accident. The emotional effect on you is quite dramatic and quite draining. You're dealing with real people who've sadly died, and then the families of those real people, and you sort of start relating that to your own personal circumstances and how would you deal with that as a person. That becomes very emotionally challenging. But at the time when you're dealing with the job, you switch into sort of an autopilot mode.
Then, just as Phil's night shift is about to end, new information comes in that changes everything.
Now we've got confirmation that the Audi Q7 was actually the vehicle that was seen in West Yorkshire, travelling at high speed towards Greater Manchester.
The fact that the Audi involved in the crash is the same speeding car reported earlier that night leaves Phil with more questions than answers. He can't stop investigating now.
We've got to start looking beyond the evidence that's at the scene and start looking at a bigger picture, the events that led up to this.
But what he discovers will reveal another side to Hussein, who could be more dangerous than Phil ever suspected.
He tells him in no uncertain terms that if he calls the police, that he's going to go round and he's going to kill him, he's going to kill his wife, he's going to kill his family.
In our next story, police investigating a tip-off in a sleepy rural town unexpectedly discover a key player in the criminal underworld. There are tens of thousands of registered firearms across the UK. Most are in rural areas and used for sports or pest control. But illegal or unlicensed guns are another matter altogether, especially when there's a risk they could fall into the hands of criminals. Detective Inspector Vicky McCauley knows her area well from her years in uniform and her current role in CID.
When I was 25, I joined Durham Constabulary and never looked back.
Her patch covers rural farmland as well as small towns, like Langley Park, just outside Durham.
Langley Park is a quiet, tight-knit community. It's rows of terraced houses. It's an old mining community that's an outline of Durham City. Nothing exciting happens, really.
But on a cold day in November, a tip-off comes in that there's a weapon being kept at a house in this most unlikely location.
We receive information all the time from lots of different sources. It's quite a rural area, so predominantly you will have farmers with shotguns or people who have shotgun licenses to go and shoot rabbits and things like that. So it would be maybe an air weapon, possibly a shotgun, something along those lines. If you got some information in that there was a weapon in an address, the first thing you do as well would be look at the people who lived in that address. We knew the owner of the property and we identified him as Paul Anthony Glynn.
There's suddenly much greater cause for concern. Glynn is known to the police. More worrying, he's banned from owning firearms.
We understood that Paul had a long-term partner and also had grown-up children and very young children inside the property.
Police need to check out the tip-off, but with children in the house, they must tread carefully.
Is this something that's ongoing now? Has somebody reported seeing someone brandishing something in the street? Or is it information where 3 months ago, I think somebody had a firearm in the house? And this will all go into our decision-making as to how we're going to deal with these people, how we're going to search the property.
The team get a search warrant, knowing every second counts.
Every hour that you're not going in there, is something happening? Is it possible that there was a firearm there but it gets moved, or worse, gets used? So you are just wanting to get into that property.
A team including specialist search experts and firearms officers is assembled.
You want no one to get hurt and you want everything to go well. So there's nerves, and there's a certain amount of excitement about what it's going to lead to. We deliberately went early in the morning. We had the element of surprise.
They find Paul Glynn still in bed.
Paul was asleep. He was quite rude and nonchalant and wanted to know why we were there.
Glynn doesn't seem worried. But with the building secure, officers begin the search and immediately find a pistol.
It was on top of the fridge in the kitchen, and it was a starter pistol. It was rusted, it looked really old.
A starter pistol in a private home is perfectly legal. So if this is what led to the tip-off, police have wasted their time. Officers continue their search. Then they make a shocking discovery.
There was also a toy box which was downstairs, and that had a large amount of ammunition inside. Some of that ammunition was for semi-automatic weapons, specific to extremely dangerous illegal weapons.
Suddenly, everything changes. This is evidence of a much bigger crime.
It was just rolling around inside. It wasn't even wrapped up in anything. You start to think the house is a death trap.
You're under arrest, OK? On suspicion of possessing ammunition.
What started as a tip-off about a firearm has led to an arrest for possession of powerful ammunition. With Glynn in custody, the search team makes an extraordinary find. Several bags full of gun parts.
This weapon was disassembled within the address, wrapped up in various plastic bags and secreted around the house. This is a 9mm submachine gun. It's a World War II weapon, and it fires at a rate of 600 shots per minute.
And it's not the only gun. Far from it. In fact, there's many, many more.
This is a 16-bore side-by-side shotgun. This shotgun was recovered from the address with 2 other shotguns that are on the table there. And these shotgun serial numbers were run through the database, and it was found that the 3 shotguns had been stolen from a burglary in Northumbria. It's not just the fact that these are shotguns that aren't licensed, they're also stolen property as well.
In total, there are a dozen guns of all shapes and sizes. Something Vicky could never have predicted. Why on earth has Glynn got all these weapons in his family home?
You start to develop an idea about Paul Anthony Glynn, that it wasn't just someone who had an interest in weapons, and it wasn't just someone who may have had a shotgun. It was that consideration and possibility that he was selling these weapons to criminals. Were these weapons being used further afield in other areas for the purposes of criminality and to really hurt people?
If that's the case, Glynn is a major figure in the criminal underworld across the northeast of England. And there's one more horrifying discovery yet to come.
This is a Smith & Wesson World War I handgun, capable of firing 6 shots in quick succession. It was located in the bedroom where the 4-year-old child was sleeping, wrapped in a carrier bag. The weapon was loaded with 4 live rounds, so literally all you would need to do is just pick that up, pull the trigger and shoot somebody and kill them.
What started with a tip-off about a possible illegal firearm has led to the discovery of a deadly armoury, including a live weapon in a 4-year-old child's bedroom.
The firearms officers were really surprised and really shocked. They'd never seen a loaded weapon so easily accessible, and that could have quite easily caused the death of a young child in that house. The whole investigation had taken a really serious turn.
A job that began as a search for a single weapon has escalated more than any of the detectives could have imagined.
I knew that he had a history of violence and criminality, but I didn't have any idea about the scale and the amount of weapons that he would have in his house.
Specialist firearms officers proceed to make the weapons safe.
We had 2 firearms experts whose minds were blown. They were amazed by the stuff that had been located in this really small house in a sleepy town in County Durham.
Glynn is charged with numerous firearms offences and remanded in custody. At interview, he refuses to answer any questions. But come the day of the trial, he seems to know the game is up.
Paul Anthony Glynn pleaded guilty to 19 counts of possession of ammunition and firearms that were located in the property. The judge sentenced him to 19 years.
Glyn later appealed and his sentence was reduced to 12 years. But for Vicky, sitting in court, seeing him sentenced was a moment not to be missed.
It was a vindication of all the hard work that had been done. From a small piece of information that we thought would maybe reveal a firearm, resulted in this massive cache of weapons and ammunition. In my 23-year service, I've never come across anything like that before in my life.
Back in Greater Manchester, Sergeant Phil Robinson is investigating a motorway crash that killed 2 members of the same family. The driver of the car that smashed into them, 32-year-old Imran Hussain, is in custody. Police know he was drunk at the wheel, but they suspect there's even more to it than that.
We know at the time of the accident that he changed from lane 3 into lane 1. It was a very erratic manoeuvre, and we had to try and find out why that actually happened. Was he on his phone?
But there's another cause for concern. Imran Hussain was aggressive and threatening to witnesses at the crash scene.
This isn't just a simple accident. What we had here was an aggressive guy who's already threatened 2 witnesses. This is a guy that doesn't care about other people. This is a guy that's happy to drink, get in a car, irrelevant of the consequences.
Phil is concerned about this pattern of dangerous behaviour and fears that if Hussain is granted bail, he could flee the country.
Even when we've got multiple fatalities, it is very difficult to retain somebody in custody. And we're worried that he's going to be a flight risk. So in this particular case, we wanted to try and make sure this guy did not get released on bail. We wanted him on remand in prison until he faced the trial.
But time's not on his side.
When we've arrested someone, the clock starts ticking. We've got 36 hours basically to interview and get evidence from that person. Then we've got to either charge them or release them.
Phil's 10-hour night shift is long since over, but he's not going home. To prevent Hussain from being released on bail, Phil must urgently build a picture of the driver's movements before the accident.
What we'd asked was for West Yorkshire to see if they had any reports of drink drivers or any vehicles being driven erratically, because we did have this report of a possible drink driver at a petrol station.
If it is Imran Hussain, then there could be potential CCTV footage showing his behaviour.
We need to get that evidence. We know it's there, we don't know how long it's going to be kept. The quicker we get it, the quicker we can retain it.
Phil could ask West Yorkshire Police to help, but with the clock ticking, he decides to do it himself.
So it's my investigation. I want to make sure that we don't leave any stone unturned. So when we get in the car, off we go. We get to the petrol station. The cashier had gone home at that point, but we've got an address for him, so we can have a quick chat with him. We can make sure that the CCTV footage is retained, and obviously we actually made sure we took it back with us.
The footage reveals that the drunk driver is Imran Hussain and shows some extraordinary behaviour.
So as we watch this footage, it starts to unfold. We could see he was staggering. Clearly he's been drinking alcohol. Now he feels like he wants something to eat and another drink. He was leaning against one of the displays. He was opening the crisps. He was drinking from the bottle of what he'd selected off the display. From speaking to the cashier, he tells me that the guy was aggressive. He simply asked him to pay for the goods, and he starts being aggressive and abusive and swearing at him. He actually makes specific threats to him that if he makes any attempt to call the police, he's going to kill him, he's going to kill his wife, he's going to kill his family. And this became rather relevant because he'd made similar threats at the scene of the accident to the 2 people that had gone to him when he crashed the car. So we've got, again, something that's linking together here. Specific threats made in the same manner, using the very same words and aggression towards him.
The CCTV and the cashier's statement show Hussein's committed even more crimes, with no regard for anyone else. It's the final piece of the picture, and exactly what Phil needs.
What we actually looked at was an additional charge of making threats to kill, and he clearly made those threats to that cashier, and that cashier did have concerns about his safety, and it was that that allowed us to remand this guy in custody, and that obviously reduces the chance of him being a flight risk.
With Hussein in custody, Phil now has time to build a concrete case against him, using data from the car, motorway cameras, and Hussein's own mobile phone records.
Our accident investigator was actually able to calculate the speed of around 110 miles an hour. You're looking at high-speed impacts.
It was at that point that he'd ploughed into the Fiat Punto. And what's more, phone records prove he was texting at that same moment.
I was fairly confident that myself and my colleagues had put together a pretty watertight case. We'd not given him any options to wiggle out of anything. We knew he was in the car, we knew the manner of his driving, we knew the state of mind, the aggressive nature of him, the fact he hadn't shown any remorse at any point in this investigation. So when this case came to trial, we'd already been indicated that it was going to be a guilty plea. Now, in normal cases, the expected sentence is around 7 years for a guilty plea. So we were rather pleased when we got an 8-year sentence.
What started out as a minor offence, a report of a speeding motorist, has ended up with the death of 2 innocent people, and the offender behind bars. For Phil, it's always a matter of trying to get justice for the victims.
The emotions and things are not necessarily still raw, but they're still there. It never goes away. But when you get a suitable resolution, it gives you a coping mechanism and a way of dealing with it. The fact that I've done my job, I've got a proper resolution to it, and hopefully it's the resolution that that family wanted, and it will give them the opportunity to deal with it in the best way they can. We can never replace the loss of loved ones, but what we can do is make sure that we bring them justice.
Next time on Big Little Crimes, cops looking for a stolen motorbike find much more than they bargained for.
And it just come as a complete shock. So it's like something massive was uncovered.
And a report of a single malicious phone call.
I know where you live, how to get in your house.
Becomes a massive investigation into a vast campaign of harassment.
I'm still shocked now that there were so many victims. The fact that he was lying in every single interview.